Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Treasury Policy call. Today on 16th September, we joined here to discuss about the ambassador program, general topics, a bit of Treasury Policy topics on proposals and there's feedback, and we address the policy discussions that are coming over from the policy work group. We already covered the policy discussions, and there are going to be new updates on the summary, and you will see new posts on the Discord once we're done with it. Now moving to the reviewing Q4 budgets. From the last, you remember I shared this kind of board from first iteration, and like how many people got yes votes, and no votes, and abstain from the work group. The group list is below here, and now it slightly changed it. I changed it into percentage, so you can see like where writers work group got like 35% and compared to like total votes, and for example onboarding work group got 82%. So yeah, having like a percentual view on that, and now I added the iteration 2 on top of it. I did try to make so that the iteration 1 abstains and consents will carry over to the iteration 2, but it wasn't as like just simple algorithm to throw into Power BI. So yeah, if it's still you want to see that kind of result, it will take me at least an hour, if not two, to modify the like underlying data to make it like work for Power BI. So yeah, if you're interested in it, then let me know, and I can like take it on an action. Right now, I'm opted out doing that, and just to kind of save funds. And yeah, there are, as you can see, a lot of like proposals did not pass. And if I don't even know where to start from, like what are like the main questions from people regarding next steps. I think we have the roadmap of different work groups and discussion points where people are going to take one proposal and address the consent stuff. And from, I don't know, from a Treasury Guild perspective, I will say that we are not learning from previous iteration. If you ask me, I would systematically like make more like options where we just force the numbers down, and instead of like trying to ratify all the proposals and funds. But yeah, I don't know, what are your thoughts? What should we do, and what you think about this whole process? Peter.
Well, as also noted on Discord by Vanessa, it kind of looks like we tried to introduce something to save time, which didn't work out. But I still think it's a valuable first step in the process. But just for full clarity, iteration 2 is still open until end of day UTC today.
Ah, yes. So yeah, these numbers can change for iteration 2.
Yes.
If like this is results from about 1 hour ago.
Yeah, fair. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure, like before jumping to conclusions on the current work group showing no objections. Well, I know for myself, I didn't do my round yet. So yeah, the current on-screen results might still change. I just wanted to point that out, and it also made me a little doubt on what makes sense, as in, well, we don't have the full input of this iteration right now.
Do we have a number of co-contributors who did go through this iteration, the second one? I just if we're improving.
Technically, no. let me stop share for a second. Let me open Power BI and see if we can get that information. Okay. The table opened.
Oh dear. That's poor. Good.
No,
I don't think it, but this sounds like what I was saying earlier on, you know, about co-contributors not jumping on decisions.
I opened the wrong Power BI. Yeah, to get that answer, the yeah. Meanwhile, you can continue discussing. It'll take me about a few minutes to get that answer.
I can do that in the meantime as well.
But you mean calculating how many responses there are? Because all I need to do is
the second iteration. Just how many different people?
Email address, number, sum, count district. Yeah, 11 people participated in iteration 2.
Okay. Let's see how it goes.
But the same applies. Like results can change. It's with the time of 11 UTC.
Yeah. I'm guessing we are going to go through this at tomorrow's governance call, right?
Probably. And there was consent deadline, objection solving session. Yes, tomorrow is some session. 21 is submission again. Basically, that's the third iteration, end of third iteration, or I guess end of submission for the third iteration. And then on 23rd, we have a final consent on 80% of majority counts. And if nothing would change, then 80% would.
Do you mind explaining that clause, that 80% clause? Or you, Peter, if any of you understands it better?
Sorry, what's your question? On how that works, basically?
I'm asking about the final consent where they said 80% majority counts. Does it mean that if there's like 80% consent safe to try and there's 20 objection, you're going to go with to 80? What does that mean?
Well, it's basically a way of ensuring we don't get in a everlasting loop of not finding consent. So if by the third iteration we still don't have full consent, then the 80% majority for consent check would be used instead of 100%.
It does leave to one unclarity. How does abstain be part of that? Right now, for example, in this iteration, I'll calculate the abstain to be part of the 100%. And if they should be actually discounted, then this 70% would equally like share between these two entities. So it would like, let's say 10% to here, it would be 22 and 75, let's say, or something. And then, which would make the AI ethics workgroup not pass. Let's say in our archivist workgroup, it's also not passing, but the missing percent of 5% here, that would be, yeah, I guess. In governance workgroup might not pass if the abstain is now it's because abstain is adding to both sides. Never mind. So it would like.
Oh, I would argue the abstain shouldn't be distributed over the two other options. I think you should remove it, and then let's say there's 15 votes, one abstain.
Right.
Then you just move at the percentage. You check only the consent and objections, and then the consent has to be 80+%. I would not. Maybe I'm. This is just a personal opinion, I guess, and you're completely right. This should be clarified before we get to that 80% stage. So that's something we do need to figure out and confirm. But I spread the abstains among the two options.
Do you divide it equally? Is that what you mean, Peter?
In the end, what Peter mentioned is the same thing. It's just I used percentage, but if we completely remove that number and just like the total amount is 16, how much is 4 from 16? How many percents? Right now, this number assumes like it's allocating percentage from between different like categories. But if you take half of the abstain and split it to both negative and positive, then you will get still 100%. And you will say that, okay, 25% of people were against knowledge base. And if 80% is needed for ratification, then then it doesn't pass.
All right.
But if the
result all the time, I think it should be removed from the total. But we still have some time to figure this out, but we definitely need to finalize a procedure for this, because right now we're a couple of people in a call rather than the broader group. Yeah.
But isn't that, I think that was an expectation at the beginning, like we are not thinking abstain as anything. It's just that acknowledging. So using only yes and no votes to compare if we get 80% of majority.
I kind of think maybe we should take out abstain from all the percentage completely, like Peter said, because I don't know, it's going to make everything a bit confusing.
I think, I sort of share Tevo's sentiment in a way. The purpose of abstain was not, I think when I heard that conversation about abstaining being part of the options, abstain was more of just to track to see how many people actually viewed the form. But it was not necessarily going to be calculated when we are looking at the quorum for passing for total consented and total objected. So I don't think it should also be a part of the math. A part of the math, because because abstaining is basically saying I saw it, but I didn't do anything with it. I just didn't do anything. So.
Yep. Makes sense, I guess.
Okay. Okay, I see a bit that you're also typing that I shouldn't divide abstain percentage equally. I might be, I thought that kind of gives the same results. It's like a way to, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, so basically what we agreed is the majority percentage. Percentage calculation for iteration 4, because iteration oh wait, is it iteration 3 or 4? We have one more submission coming up, and then it's the final. Okay, so yeah, iteration only counts from the total of who's who consented and objected. One more question. Would that also mean does the objections need to be valid? So if somebody objects and says they ask too much money, probably that's something that is like waived as not the proper objection. Does that also mean removal from calculating towards that percentage?
I think there was a form on that, or a document on what is a valid objection, right?
Yeah.
Was there a written statement on what we would do if the objection isn't tangible?
I'm not sure where to find that
In the context.
objection.
Yeah, that was the correct document.
No, but that didn't show any how to object. That just gives content setting. And that was quarter 3 also, not quarter 4.
There should be a version of this.
Accidentally
I
refreshed
think it's
my.
on this.
Maybe we can go to the.
Let me
Here.
check if I can get it. Or have you seen it?
Here we have quarter 4 context setting. Let's see if there are any documents here.
Yeah, that's what is the valid reason.
Okay, yeah. So again, basically the question comes, if the objection is not a valid reason based on what's written here, does it mean that it doesn't count for that percentage, or it does? Like, can we then dismiss a vote? Because clearly we cannot do it for consenting, as there most people are not even providing any rationale why they're consenting. So yeah, it would be kind of disadvantageous for those who want to kind of slow down the process. They have to provide a rationale. Maybe that is the good way to go about it.
Not to be harsh, but I think if we do ignore the valid ground for objections, it's going to ruin the whole point of writing it down. I say if you object out of the context, out of what we designed as a tangible reason for objection, then we shouldn't I don't know, address it, or maybe take it as part of the overall decision or calculation.
Yeah, but
Because if we don't do that, that's going to be confusing a bit.
Okay, so putting it into the perspective of if the rationale is invalid, where it is decided, and okay, so there is a way to basically to give an invalid objection, and if it is an invalid objection, does it mean removal from the calculations of the final results?
Yes, To me, that's what I would say it means. I don't know about any other person.
Yeah, I would say if we even start to use this concept of invalid objections, then we can't count these invalid objections. Otherwise, why even have the thing? At the same time, noting this is the first quarter where we utilize this, I would advocate for using some leniency and at least trying to discuss the objections, even though they seem invalid in these consent reaching sessions.
Yeah, sure. I'm actually up for us discussing it, but I don't think we should actually add it or take it as part of the calculation of the overall responses. Is, yeah.
Yeah, I agree, but it's just the way things go on these experimental processes. I would advocate just for a bit of leniency and not be too harsh. Like, no, this is invalid. We cannot consider it.
That's true. But how are we going to do that?
We'll have to see during these sessions. Yeah, I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now, so we do have more leniency and have to use common sense to go through the objection.
Yeah, perhaps because this is being the first quarter we do this, I would take some extra time to indicate, like, well, if for the next quarters, if your objection is just going to be like this, in this without proper rationale behind it, it would not be dealt with.
I think that actually was already in place in last quarter, and this is what kind of came up, I assume.
That is quite a good point.
And basically that would then be like an iteration, so it's improving. If in the upcoming work groups now and cool discussions, we see more objections that are not as clear, then if we find like the reason why it's invalid, we put that reason into a next quarter's context setting document. Yes. So it's kind of gets bigger.
And to add to that, sorry, love, I'm not ignoring your hand. But to add to that, do we have anything from the previous quarter which we need to take into account based on this?
I guess the responses themselves has not been written out. Here it's just like a guidance, what it needs to be, not what it shouldn't be.
Can I just add that we have it in mind that the objections without rationale is going to actually delay us. Let's just have that in mind, because I've seen it happen last quarter. Most objections without a tangible reason always delays everything, because there'll be sentiments, there'll be theories, there'll be arguments. That's just it.
Yeah, details of budget distribution for the tasks performed are not yet clear in detail. So for example, this objection might be invalid if it's not that obvious when you look at the proposal itself. If it's just one line, I guess that's easy. But that it would be nice if the objection kind of clearly states like the budget distribution is only mentioned in one line or something. And yeah, I wonder if it's like would be good if an example is given, or what expected here. Close the document. What is a specific objection? What needs to be changed in order for the, yeah, there is it says what is the problem, but it doesn't say what has to be changed. If you ask for more details, then it should follow up with the questions that request the details. Let's say project management $1,000 was written in strategy guild, and now it says like it's not detailed enough. Now the question should be more precise here, like regarding project management budget, how is that $1,000 distributed between task management, coordination, operations, and who is going to do that? Or something like that. Or how often it will be done. Anyway, so it is missing that kind of second change part. But yeah, I'm not gonna go too detailed into here, but that's so it established a better clarity on when does this all get ratified. Yeah, if you look at iteration 1 as like the main result, then even then like a lot of proposals would not pass. It will be a bit problematic. However, if you look at second iteration, and I would take the first iteration consents over the second iteration, I feel like only these with more than like 30% will not pass, which are like basically 8 proposals out of 18, which is pretty good. I would like to see a bit of like negative effects, but then again, if you try to kind of fund everything, it's also makes this program more unique compared to other, where those who have like, because it will force us into more of popularity a bit, because we are still quite like an internal group, and we get more people to do like internal activities or like ambassador programs activities, but nobody outside of ambassador program is like steering us or towards any directions. So yeah. I don't know. And on the other side, there was like discussion several months ago about these like internal activities and external activities, where yes, in process and strategy will we do a bit of external, but mainly it's meant to kind of manage ourselves. And now the education GUI, for example, is doing the internal stuff, but it's expected output is for external activities, because they're like teaching about SingularityNet. But right now, they're most spend time on creating the content within themselves. However, is pretty much internal, although I guess with the AI ethics combination, they are now doing a bit more external stuff. So if you will say that, okay, by looking, because statistically, like the side, everybody chooses like how many percentage this work group is doing external and internal, then we get the sentiment how much we in general spend our kind of capacity of ambassador program in internal activities and external, and they make that kind of like a hard cap for internal activities can only, let's say, to as 30% of budget, and these work groups are going under that budget, and then external get that kind of budget. So this way, like writers work group is less affected by Treasury Guild. Like, yeah, and because they are clearly doing totally different things. Right now, each of these separate things are kind of all entangled to each other, But then writers work group would compete with video and marketing, but that would kind of make sense that their budget is, they're like competing with each other because they are doing external stuff. Now they just need to choose, do they do less writing or they do less video work, I think. Do they do less translation and so forth. Right now we need to decide, yeah, do we do less management in general versus putting output.
Yeah, I do feel that will be the way to go. I don't know. Usually in this discussion, there's always people advocating for workgroup autonomy, so which I do think is very important. So I wouldn't make it top-down a decision like, oh, you need to cut down on meetings, for example. You know, that shifting meetings from weekly to bi-weekly is one of the easiest ways of cutting this overhead cost. Yeah.
That basically would look something like what deep funding is doing. They have like development stuff, they have services stuff, and the proposals don't compete with each other. And right now I provided example of internal and external, but are there something else that is more obvious, or like you could ask ChatGPT. See. Based on these word groups and tools, what would be best up to 5 categories and that can be organized, that these groups will fit under. So operation governance, outreach and community, content creation and education, research and development, and knowledge management documentation. Yeah, I would actually put the Treasury automation workgroup here under research. Did I even? Wait, I didn't copy paste everything. I'm in quarter 2. Sorry. So basically, to get the idea, like that's the same. How about these groups? It tries the same thing, but well, something changed. Knowledge management and documentation is here 5th, but here is the innovation and technology. The category changed, but it kind of gives now this option. And let's say we equally distribute $10,000 or so, whatever we have the budget, then those areas will kind of compete with each other. Of course, now deciding that will be another Google form, I guess, where it's like select your group and now select what kind of category they belong to. And these categories, I guess the first iteration is what categories we even have.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, this is in itself, it's a good discussion, I think, and it's a decent starting point. But for having video and writers not at outreach, and I don't know, it's not perfect, I wouldn't say. But yeah, it's I mean, it's a bit in line with Walter's suggestions to have just a couple of streams, and these categories then would be the streams, I guess.
Yeah, right now I think we are running into this danger where, well, we haven't looked at it, but if if we move on to like, let's say, next topic of how to cut treasury quill budgets, there we have like clear issues where we, because so many other work groups are now asking budgets compared to like previous quarters, we actually get less funds to do what we always do with more capacity. Like there is much stuff happening, but we get less funds to do what we already do. And that is, if that continues to go like that, at some point, there is so many work groups who are all doing stuff, but there is no funds to just run the basic infrastructure. And that also is not like a really, I guess, sustainable result.
No, very true. In a way, like technically, I'm sure there's still places within Treasury Guild proposal where there could be, you know, scraping here and there. I don't know, put the transactions to bi-weekly rather than weekly. I think, right?
Yeah, that would be basically the solution. Like, and most of the, yeah. But at some point, even that would be like meaning that only one person does it every 1 month, but then it's totally centralized. And the reason is because there is so much funds to other things that ambassador people want to do, so they want to make it efficient. But another point here is that we do want to decentralize treasury management, make it a decentralized ecosystem. So we're not really following the goal if we kind of close all the calls and meetings.
No, very true. You know, it brings the question, like, should there be like a distinction in funds assignment to like what is mission critical? I would say Treasury Guild, by definition, feels like something that is relatively mission critical. The only issue with this approach is that pretty much every work group will try and start arguing that they are indeed mission critical, right? And if everything is mission critical, nothing is. So yeah, that's a potential issue there. I'm not sure if we should even have that concept. You know, it just comes with inherent issues. That being said, yeah, if we're not distributing any funds, nothing runs. So that in itself would already be quite a case for example, Treasury Guild being mission critical. I don't know. I would say it's for sure it's not up to the work group to declare themselves mission critical, which is kind of what we're doing right now in this Treasury Guild call. That's not the way it should work, right? There's clear issues there. But yeah, there might be some. I don't know. I just expect pretty much every single work group to argue that they are indeed mission critical, and I'm not sure how to prevent that.
Well, clearly, I think how to define that it should be more like a community consensus. But then we go back to this, when you do the proposal selection, you also choose, is that work group or a quill mission critical? And if we would get like 10 people think they are not, 5 people think they are yes, rest of them don't care, like as usual, then at least we get some kind of sentiment. And how do we decide from that result of sentiment? That's another question. Is it going to be a percentage, or is it reaching specific number?
Yeah, this is hard. I'm not sure what the best solution there is.
If you want to implement this category stuff, and then and also know about what is mission critical, then we could do it in one single form, I guess. I wonder, has anybody done work on like tagging the work group or guild or labeling? I guess not. Yeah. Another thing in form, I wouldn't want to kind of tell that, hey, there is operation governance. What work group should be under that? We want that we have, everybody has to make up a group themselves and sort it. So that if new are coming up, and then we kind of look at the full messy data and use that to kind of come up with results. Usually, we used to do these things in the meeting themselves. Like everybody is in the Miro board, and they take like, okay, come up with a name and now start sorting, and then the sticky notes just kind of fly into the place. But now I guess we need to use some.
Well, in my mind, I right now I think this should be considered as a new idea in the brainstorming phase on how the fuck do we cut budgets all across the board, or spending rather, not budgets, but how do we go about cost cutting exercise? I think it's a bit early to start asking people to do this categorization, but if at some point we everybody agrees on, yeah, this is the way forward and we should be doing this kind of stream approach, or how you want to call it, category approach, then for sure we should do a proper session on categorization, but it feels early for me.
Yeah, okay, I agree. It would help with cost cutting, but it probably will take more time to get to that point. And then we do get to cost cutting because now we have a better understanding of categories and which work group has to know how much we cut. But then by that time, we probably are in the next quarter already, and we come back to this current situation where it's like, yeah, but what about right now proposals? So yeah, let's keep it as that. What is the time? We have 15 minutes left. Do we have any more open topics that people want to discuss or questions? Or shall we move to the next item, which we either choose reviewing Treasury Guild proposal feedback, or we start cost cutting for Treasury Guild in this call?
A potential alternative topic, and I'm not sure if this is the right place, but during last town hall, we shared a document for this ideation on cost cutting, and in itself, Treasury feels like a decent spot for discussing that. Could also touch on it during town hall tomorrow. Yeah, not quite sure what the best approach is there, to be honest.
So you mean general cost cutting discussion? I do remember there was some kind of document listing all the things you could do.
Yes, let me try and find it.
But when we are looking at what do we want to see from there? Is it something that we in this call, well, right now it's like 10 minutes. Like, do we use that document to do the Treasury Guild cost cutting, which is basically, I agree with that document. It's like very common rationale stuff there. And when we already while writing the proposal, we kind of kept that in mind, like where the funds are coming from? Or you want to discuss more like how could this document be improved?
Well, I'm not really suggesting to apply this document right now to Treasury. I was just basically, this is a brainstorming document, right? And I'm not sure what the best way of going forward with this brainstorming document is. So yeah, I don't want to spend the remainder of this session on this document. I just figured I'd bring it up as a potential topic. But yeah, you're quite right. These are, well, pretty generic tips.
There are more tips than I last watched it, so maybe there is something more detailed coming up now. I mean, one thing it would be when I looked at the quarter4 or quarter3 reports against the quarter3 budgets, I did notice some work groups created like a new sheet, which they called budget fitted. So they really, like in real time, showed their decisions where they are doing cross-cutting compared to where in some work groups, like they say that work group had no money to do anything, like the cost, it was fitted and the token price was dropping, and so they couldn't do much. But yet when you look at the like treasury outputs, they still didn't spend at least even half of their budget. So, and when you look at you don't even know what kind of changes they made. So, and so it made it like very arbitrary for some. So that cool, but that makes it very bureaucratic if you would say like, okay, now use this budget fitting example as going through your current budget and like kind of line by line say what kind of method is addressed, if at all. So everybody's, yeah. Yeah, and that would help us more like rationalize it, or maybe just it's a helping tool, but the output should be you have every work group and guild has a new budget that is now fitting to the new result. Of course, that would introduce totally something new. Like that means this submission deadline, every single person has to submit a new person, but every work group has to, and guild has to resubmit a new budget sheet that is fitting to the new outcome. And then we could come to an agreement, I guess. Because right now we are agreeing on who is able to come up with the most actions and projects under their proposal, and regardless if they're gonna do them or not. I shared that sentiment like last quarter and previous quarters, like this is gonna get worse and worse, and it is getting worse and worse. Like everybody's just increasing their budget and not caring about. We have a very limited budget in ambassador program. But if we kind of make them now focus on budget fitting, then at least we will see the actual expected outputs while we go into quarter4.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Because again, I think generally, even from last quarter, the final outcome of most of the back and I would say back and forth still ended in people fitting their budgets at the end of the day, which got, okay, I use strategy guild for instance. eventually Strategy Guild still got a budget, but it wasn't the initial budget they put in. It was more like a very, 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 very streamlined and fitted budget. So the outcome of the entire process is, because I don't see, in my head, I don't see how none of these work groups would get budget approval at the end of the day. But the outcome would be that the budget, the initial budget that they submitted and the budget that would be approved would be, there will be a lot of fitting that would have gone into the final budget that will be approved, in my opinion. So yeah, so I just said all of that to say that I agree. And I get your point.
It sounds like a decision, unless the problem is now we are only 3 people in Treasury will call.
Yeah, very.
But we are recording, so if you find yourself against that decision, then please let us know. Otherwise, I guess in the meeting summary, we can put it as a decision that going forward, we expect by 23rd September, every workgroup and guild submit a new budget sheet that fits to new results.
I'm honestly not super sure if this is something we need to force down. Like if we do the budget fitting, like we do the budget, there needs to be some budget fitting, right? And if we now force people to put a new proposal or a new budget to be in tune with this, we touch on workgroup autonomy quite a bit, I feel. I'm not sure. It doesn't feel 100% good.
But in the end, they decide what they remove from budget. They have to do it anyway. Why can't they do it quarter before, or like just before the quarter starts?
Well, they will. I'm just not sure if we should request a new budget overview for that on this relatively short notice, because we're talking less than 2 weeks here. But they will have to adhere to the fitted budget anyway, because that's the maximum they're gonna get.
Yeah, they will still. And again, that would be, in my own opinion, that would be an additional cost to most of the work group, because when they start talking about fitting their budget to submit a new budget, most work groups would now charge that as, because it's tax done. So it's going to be a new overhead for those work groups as well. So I think it can just be like a conversation that has been had, like a new insight into how the budgets, approaching the whole consensus process and budget submission, but enforcing it, I think I'd probably be like, you might just overly extend the timeline, and yeah, but every work group would eventually still fit their, still have to fit their budget, but having to submit that budget again, I think that's where the conversation lies.
I'm looking like these red ones are like the most expensive ones. If I will take Reuters workgroup budget sheet and we will tell them, hey, you now need to cut your budget, basically, let's say by half. It's not really half, but yes, it is an extra task, but it should be doable by like a workgroup leader or somebody, or in a workgroup, where they decide like, where is this half coming from? Do we have all the meetings? Like, and if they have this document next to it, they have an exercise of, and we could use this thing as actually the discussion points in the next meetings. Like, if like budget this cutting is the discussion how to proceed to the next stage, then because that will provide tangible results. Like one thing, yes, is like, is this work they are proposing to do, is it aligned with the ambassador program itself? Another one is, are they capable of running it with fitted budget they need to do anyway? And right now there are clear outcomes which prove that they actually don't manage their budget at all. And that probably may not even know how much they have left, or even if there are dashboards. But if you put it forefront that you need to plan your next quarter before the quarter starts, and plan it, because they already did like the main planning. Now they only have to delete stuff. They don't have to come up with new things. Then they can go like, okay, recurring meetings. Do we need 12 meetings? Can we make it half less? If they can make it half less already, that's already 1,200 down. Newsletters, do they need every month, I guess, a newsletter? Maybe they can do 1 month less, already $150 is less, I think, cost per quarter. Okay, $50 less. And basically reading through an item, reading through that list, reading to an item, reading to that list, and back and forth. Writers workgroups that has the most content on budget sheet will have the hardest time doing that, but they are the person who are, or the group that is asking the most funds. So maybe that's like kind of give and take. If you're proposing a lot, you will do an extra work to kind of get that funding plan. And maybe that can just be another column here. But I would, yeah, I guess, prefer another sheet that just change these iterations, hourly prices, or yeah, changes iterations to 0, even if they like, I don't know, if they have something that trivial in a session, $600. Well, they are super great. They happen almost weekly, but maybe, yeah, turn them into bi-weekly, or reuse trivia questions so that we don't need to come up with new ones all the time. And I wonder how, like, why is that $600? Like, ChatGPT should generate like pretty good results already, or is the operations will take that much time? Anyway, that's already getting into details, but yeah, to me, but I'm a number person. To me, it doesn't really seem that hard. It's like, okay, 1 or 2 hours extra, and perhaps a meeting with the people on their own. And right now, the 2 weeks is actually like the minimum that could be useful, because then they at least have this week and the next week where they can meet on top of that topic. And if we get it started now, these 2 open meetings we already have could be used like 10 or 15 minutes, what I just discussed, to go through, help them to kind of get few changes to their budgets, and then leave them on their own kind of space to finish their budget sheet.
Yeah, but then generally, though, I think every work group knows that they would have to fit their budget eventually. So I think there are conversations. I think I've joined a couple of work group calls where at least 1 or 2 where there've been conversations around fitting the budget. I think some already even have a plan of how to fit their budget. They already have that insight as to what activities they would have to cut to be able to, to fit their budget. And I think invariably, though, I think another approach can be like, by the time we're done with this, by the time this consent round, and work groups that don't already move forward, they will still have to fit their budget. But then again, that would exclude the ones that their budget have been approved, right?
Mhm.
But they will still have to still fit their budget when every other budget has been passed, or when we are done with the whole budget and proposal rounds.
Yeah, the intended effect is that those who are not able to do a budget fitting, then they do that, and then they clearly show that in order to fit to this next quarter, they're only gonna have, I don't know, meetings every week, but they don't produce any documents, any outcomes, anything. Like just they have meetings, and we look at like, okay, the budget cost is like $3,000 just to have meetings. Then it will make it also easier for the other members to see, like is this valid thing or a required thing for the ambassador program? As of right now, if you don't do that budget fitting, we only see like, oh, there is so many projects, so many meetings, so many things and documents that are going to be output, but they decide the actual outputs after we say yes. And so we say, okay, we want to see these things, but then the quarter report says that we could do nothing, we only met and we prepared the Q5 proposal, and the entire cost of this quarter went to making another proposal for the next quarter. And then it's like, why did you spend again $2,000 on just having discussions? But yeah, it doesn't affect the consent process. It just gives more a new vision or new view into the proposal. And then when the Q1 2021 comes along, it will make it even easier to review the report and the results because the quarter proposal is not as vague anymore. It's like, okay, these are the clear things we're gonna do, and then we're gonna look at, instead of list of things that they're gonna do, and then only maybe outputs explaining one or two things, and then it's unclear if they did other stuff and they didn't share, which is like in the case of, to me, like the gamer school proposal was the report was very similar, like that. They did a lot of things, but they didn't simply share it. But I know it because I was in few sessions, and when I look at the documents they shared, you could clearly read that that is going into more depth, but in the report they kind of just didn't gloss over it. Okay.
Well, but then I think on the final note, I think I went through a couple of work groups budget, and I noticed that most people have already sort of in Q4, they're planning on having fewer meetings already. I think that's like an approach most work groups are already taking. I don't know, I don't have a specific number, but at least I know that there were some work groups that were doing like weekly that are now trying to do bi-weekly, adopting bi-weekly as well. So yeah, so I think some work groups are already thinking in this direction as already in some way.
And we would have done that in Treasury Policy too, unless if there wouldn't have been other topics to be discussed. Yeah, okay, then that's it. 2 topics that go to the next week or the next session. Or probably we need to asynchronously start reviewing. Well, I did already read the Treasury Policy feedback, but yeah, I don't know how to address it. I guess I just send the response as a comment and then link to the comment in the Discord channel. I think that is the best way to kind of engage. And yeah, regarding budget fitting, I will do something for sure. So maybe if I do it, I just share it in the Treasury channel and show what to be expected. In Treasury Good, I guess it's more simpler because we're constantly losing our reserves or like our leftover funds from last quarters, but we still have it. We still have like surpluses. But yeah, I'm probably like reducing the operational times or dates is going to be like the main way to go. Actually, I don't know. Maybe I'm reducing the cost of the operationals. Yeah, it's gonna be tricky. I don't know, is it really documentation stuff that could also probably drop out. Every time I put like few hundreds there, but I think I spend maybe max 10 hours doing every quarter something. So, but yeah, like cutting down cost is gonna eventually be very problematic. Well, unless we start to kind of stare into volunteerism, like a half voluntary.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah,
Any closing thoughts
that would be interesting.
before I stop the recording and the call?
Yeah, good one. I mean, it's never going to be easy. That's just a sad reality. I mean, when token price bumps up, then we have easy times. But outside of that, not so much.
Interesting times ahead.
Maybe I will have one last question that might be relevant, because now we can change AGX to the FET tokens on Cardano. Is there going to be a change also in the supervisory council? Are they going to change it to FET, or they will keep going with AGX?
I think for now, AGIX still.
Okay.
Let me get a proper update on that. Just a sec.
Well, no worries.
Oh,
Just
fair.
something interesting to know. Because to me, like the actual underlying question is, if they already plan to change it, this might mean they are going to participate in the governance. But yeah, probably not then. All right, for those who are watching in the YouTube, in the description, you will find meeting summary and meeting notes. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.